Most people think reinvention is something you do when things fall apart. When you lose a job, when a relationship ends, when life forces your hand. But what if that idea is completely wrong? What if reinvention is not a last resort, but the most important capability for the second half of your life? What if the life that got you here is not the life that will take you forward? And what of that quiet discomfort so many people feel in midlife, that sense that something isn't quite right, even when life looks fine on the surface, is not a problem to fix, but a signal to evolve. Because here's the truth: we are living longer than any generation before us. We are living through the fastest change than any generation before us. And yet most people are still trying to live their lives as if nothing has changed. Holding on to identities, careers, habits, and ways of living that were designed for a different version of themselves in a different world. So today, what I want to do is shift how you see your life, your future, and your potential. Because by the end of this session, you will understand this. Reinvention is not something you do once, it is how you live. And those who master it don't just navigate life, they design it. So let's start by reframing something that has been misunderstood for decades. Midlife is not a crisis, it is a transition. By this stage of life, you've accumulated something incredibly valuable: experience, skills, insights, mistakes, resilience, perspective. But at the same time, something begins to shift internally. You become more aware of time, more aware of what matters, and less willing to live on autopilot. What once felt acceptable no longer feels aligned. What once motivated you no longer drives you in the same way. And this can feel quite unsettling. You might feel restless, you might feel stuck, you might feel like something is missing, even when everything looks fine externally. But this is not dysfunction, this is development. Because psychologically, what's happening is a natural progression. You're moving from externally driven goals, achievement, success, approval, towards internally driven ones: meaning, purpose, fulfillment, contribution. In your 20s and 30s, the question is often, what should I achieve? In midlife, the question changes and becomes, what actually matters now? And that question changes everything. Because now you begin to evaluate your life, not just build it. You begin to ask, is this still aligned with who I am? Is this how I want to live the next 20 or 30 years? Is this what I want my life to stand for? And here's the critical point. The second half of your life is too long to live on autopilot, which means midlife is not the end of something. It is the point where you finally have enough awareness to consciously design what comes next. And that is where reinvention becomes essential. Now, here's where most people get stuck. Because even when they feel this pull to change, they don't actually change. They fall into one of four modes of living. Either autopilot, they keep doing what they've always done, same patterns, same routines, same identity. Life is not broken, but it's not evolving either. They're repeating, not reinventing. Secondly, there's the comfort zone. So a person's life works, it's stable, it's predictable, it's safe, but it no longer stretches them. Growth has been traded for security, and over time, comfort actually becomes stagnation. Thirdly, there's survival or firefighting. Here, people are constantly reacting: stress, pressure, responsibility. They're managing life not designing it. There's no space to think, reflect, or evolve. And lastly, there's the illusion of progress. And this is probably the most dangerous one because it looks like growth, but it isn't. This is where people do courses, attend summits, read books, hire coaches, but never actually change anything. They stay busy, they stay interested, they stay engaged, but they don't commit. They consume insights and information instead of using them to transform. And so they feel like they're progressing, but in reality, they're treading water. Now, here's the truth. None of these models lead to transformation. Autopilot repeats the past. Comfort avoids growth. Survival reacts to life. Illusion consumes insights and information without change. Reinvention is fundamentally different. Reinvention is what moves you from living by default to living by design. So now let's define reinvention properly, because most people misunderstand it. They think it's about starting over or making surface level changes or becoming someone completely different. And it's not. Reinvention is the capacity to continuously evolve who you are, how you think, and how you act, so you can stay aligned with who you are becoming whilst adapting to an ever-changing world, staying relevant, and intentionally creating your future. Because here's the reality. The world is changing whether you do or not. And the question is not, will change happen? The question is, will you evolve with it or fall behind it? Without reinvention, change happens to you. With reinvention, change becomes something you use to create your future. Every reinvention, no matter the life domain, involves 4 key shifts. You update your identity, you release outdated roles, you realign with your current values, and you consciously design your next chapter. Not from your past, but from your future. There are also different levels of reinvention. There's reactive reinvention, which is when life forces you to change. You adapt because you have to. Proactive reinvention is when you anticipate change, so you act before it becomes necessary. But there is a third level, the reinventionist. This is someone who doesn't wait and doesn't just anticipate. They live in continuous evolution. They're always learning, adapting, refining, becoming. They're not reacting to life. They're actively evolving to meet it and shape it. And that is the real advantage. So now let's go deeper. Some capabilities help you do specific things. But there is another category of capability called a meta capacity. A meta capacity is a higher order capability that determines how effectively you can develop, adapt, and apply all your other capabilities. In simple terms, it's the capability behind your capabilities. For example, learning how to learn, thinking about how you think, adapting how you operate. These are meta-level abilities, and reinvention sits at this level. Because reinvention is not just a skill, it is a capability that allows you to upgrade how you think, who you are, what you do, and how you live, over and over again. Which means reinvention doesn't just improve your life, It improves your ability to improve your life. So now, why does this matter so much right now? And this is because of three fundamental things that have changed in the world we currently live in. Firstly, longer lives. We're no longer living linear single path lives. Each of us, when we reach midlife, may have an additional 30, 40, or even more years of adult life still ahead. So that's not one chapter, that is multiple lifetimes within one life. And each one requires evolution. Secondly, faster change. Technology, industries, society, everything is changing faster than ever. Skills become outdated at even greater pace. Roles evolve, opportunities shift. What worked 10 years ago may not work 10 years from now. Standing still is no longer safe. It's actually very risky. Thirdly, from a career perspective, in our lives, we don't live non-linear lives or careers. There's no longer a single path. You study, you work, and then you retire. Now it looks something like this. You learn, you work, then you pivot, you restart, you build, shift, reinvent, and do it all over again. You do this multiple times, across careers, identities, and life stages. And this means the question is no longer, what will you do for the rest of your life? The question is, how many times are you willing to evolve? Reinvention is no longer optional. It is the capability that allows you to remain relevant, fulfilled, and fully alive. So let me bring this even closer to home. You might recognize yourself in one of these particular situations. The high achiever who feels empty. Everything looks successful, but something feels missing. The busy professional, always doing, always moving, but never stepping back to ask why. The comfortable settler. Life is fine, but fine is no longer enough. The seeker. Always learning, but not actually changing. Different lives, same signal. Something is ready to evolve. Now I want to guide you through something. Not to solve your life, but to help you see it more clearly. So step one, we're going to look at our current reality. So I want you to ask yourself, where in my life am I repeating how I live rather than evolving? Where am I staying because it's comfortable, not because it feels right? Where am I busy but not actually moving forward? Now, instead of expecting answers, ask better questions. If I stopped living on autopilot, what might need to change? If I was being honest, what is no longer aligned? If I allowed myself to evolve, what direction might I explore? That space between where you are today and what those second set of questions are pointed to is called your reinvention gap. This is not something to fear, but something to step into. And here's the key. Clarity by itself is not reinvention. Action is. Reinvention begins the moment you choose to change something, test something, let go of something, step into something new, even in a small way. Because reinvention is not thinking differently, it is becoming different. Midlife is not the end of your story. It's the first time you have the awareness, the experience, and the perspective to write it consciously. You can continue reacting to life, or you can begin designing it. You can stay where you've been, or you can evolve into who you're becoming. And that comes down to one question. Are you willing to become a reinventionist? Someone who does not wait for life to force change, but someone who chooses to evolve. Someone who doesn't just seek comfort, but pursues growth and excellence. Someone who consciously designs their life to realize their potential, to contribute, and to create something meaningful. Because reinvention is not something you do once, it is how you live your life. And those who embrace it don't just adapt to life, they shape it.